Now, you can call me old-fashioned, but I am a great believer in the old adage that first impressions last. And that's certainly been the case with this, which is the new Kia Sorento. I was at the launch of this car, and it was quite a lengthy affair, driving from Port Elizabeth to Cape Town, during which time I got to appreciate many of its virtues, things such as its spaciousness, practicality, great styling, and frugal powertrain. Now the car's joined us for 6 months and 13,000 kilometers as part of our long-term test fleet. Has any of that great first impression worn off? We'll find out. Platform upon which this vehicle is based has ushered in quite a few improvements in terms of suspension componentry and torsional rigidity for the chassis, and it certainly shows in the way that the new Sorento acquits itself on the road. It is a consummate long-distance cruiser. The ride is very well damped. Yeah, the odd bit of crashiness is going to come in if you hit a heavy corrugation in the road, but that's to be expected with a vehicle of this type. Power is provided by a 2.2 litre Kia Hyundai unit. It's called the Smart Stream. This is the latest iteration of the Smart Stream 4-cylinder turbo diesel, and it is an absolute cracker. It develops 148 kilowatts and makes 440 newton meters of torque, which is ample for the application that we have here. What's more impressive, however, is just how frugal and refined this engine is. Certainly mated with an 8-speed dual clutch transmission, everything's very smooth, everything is very progressive. It's not going to set the road on fire, but performance is ample. Where it really impresses though is in terms of fuel economy. I've been driving this car for 6 months, done a little bit over 13,000 kilometers, and okay, a lot of my driving is on the motorway and on fast B roads, but for a vehicle this size to return an average of around 7.4 litres to the 100, and I've seen that drop to below 7, around the 6.8 to 6.9 mark as well, is quite remarkable. So you're looking at about 900 kilometres from a tank of fuel. Like many cars of its ilk, it has a drivetrain management system. I'm not sure exactly how useful that is in the Sorento. It's got 3 drive modes. There's comfort, where everything is in a fairly neutral setting. There's an eco mode, which is going to soften throttle response, keep the gear shifts as high as possible, obviously in a bid to save fuel. A sports mode, which obviously speeds things up a little bit with throttle and gear shift patterns and so forth. And then a smart mode, which is a balance between all of those. The car will sort of track what you're doing and adjust those parameters accordingly. While many people have been very much wowed by the Sorento's styling and its execution, the other thing that's maybe caught a few people off guard is the pricing. This is the 7-seater SXL all-wheel drive model, which is the halo model of the Sorento range, and it sits just shy of R1 million. Now, I've seen a lot of people taking deep breaths and a step back when they hear Kia and R1 million put together, but you know, that's a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction when you look at what the Sorento entails. It's a heck of a lot of car for the money. In terms of the packaging, you're looking at a sizable 7-seater SUV with a great deal of equipment on board. when I say that, I mean there actually isn't much you can spec on this car. Pretty much everything you could want is standard, and the list of features is very impressive. I'm going to have to do a deep breath just to cover a few of them. For instance, you've got a Bose audio system, you've got leather upholstery, the driver's seats are not only electrically adjustable, they're also heated and ventilated. There's a heated steering wheel, you've got dual zone climate control, panoramic sunroof, head-up display, you've got a nice TFT instrument cluster. There's also a 10-inch touchscreen infotainment system which has native navigation and audio control functionality, as well as smartphone functionality that you can plug in your smartphone and bring up Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. It's got a 360-degree camera system, so cameras in the nose, the wing mirrors and the tail will give you a 360-degree view, which is quite handy with a car this big when it comes to things like urban maneuvering, and obviously as a safety aspect that's fantastic. So the new Sorento is underpinned by the Hyundai Kia Group's N3 platform. That's a chassis that it will share in sort of certain permutations with the likes of the Carnival MPV. I think the Santa Fe also shares this platform, and there's a slightly modularized, shortened version of this platform that's underpinning Sportage. But it's quite a wide-ranging underpinning for this car. It's underpinning that introduces, in addition to improved fixings for your suspension and steering, it's marginally larger in every direction than the previous car. We're not talking a great deal, 15mm here and there, which might not sound like a great deal, but it translates into an interior that is seriously spacious. I'm not exaggerating when I say that in terms of spaciousness and versatility, it's an interior that could rival some MPVs. So sitting behind me, you've got a second row of seats that have got not only have rake adjustment for the backrest, which is quite unusual, but they're on rails. So both sections, it's a 60-40 split, can be moved backwards or forwards to either balance out legroom or boot space. Tucked into the floor of the boot are an additional 2 seats, making this particular model a 7-seater. Accommodations in the second row is certainly pretty good. There's a good deal of legroom with the seats back. You've got 4 USB ports, so there shouldn't be any squabbling with regards to who gets to plug in their tablet or their phone. You've got window blinds, cup holders, vents for the climate control back there, and also thanks to the panoramic roof and using lighter trim on the upper surfaces of the cabin, it feels quite airy. The third row, that's more the preserve of children. You're not going to have any adults sitting in there in any humane fashion. But it's useful to have. The seats fold absolutely flat into the boot floor, and with that configurability there is a great deal of space. Kia claims that with all the seats folded, you're looking at a shade over 2,000 litres of load space. You put the second row up, depending on how the bench is slid, you're looking at between 600 and 800 litres of utility space. And even with all the seats in place, which is an exercise that normally means you've got no load space, there's still 187 litres of space behind the third row of seats, which is enough for a couple of shopping bags or soft travel bags. It has to be said that compared to its rather conservative and smooth-skinned predecessor, the new Sorento is a far more attention-grabbing car. There's certainly a bit of an American feel to its styling. It's quite bluff and angular and chunky. There are certainly elements of the company's Telluride SUV, which is a big V6 model that they sell stateside. What I'm saying is there's definitely a lot more visual impact to this car, and there are neat features such as bi-color 19-inch rims on this model. The staggered LED brake lamps also look fantastic, and there's a very slick looking honeycombed treatment to the signature tiger nose grille up front. It's got a great deal of presence, which is fantastic, and it's well proportioned given that the car is a 7-seater. I also have to say that I've seen this car in a number of finishes, but our particular one, which is called Mineral Blue, really does look sublime. In addition to the autonomous braking systems fore and aft, the Sorento also plays host to some other neat safety features, one of which is a blind spot camera that's integrated into the wing mirror. So what happens is, when you indicate, the TFT instrument display will relay a feed from the camera in the wing mirror associated with that side of the vehicle, and that keeps you from having to crane your head around to check on the blind spot. It's a very handy feature. I must, however, say that in heavy weather, I found that, especially in heavy rain, you do get water rivulets obscuration of that camera. So if you are changing lanes in heavy rain, just be aware of that. Be a little bit more careful. The engine is also mechanically very refined. There's no diesel clatter coming into the cabin or any vibration of any sort. But what's perhaps even more impressive than the engine's refinement has to be its fuel economy. Now, big 7-seater SUV, you're not going to expect a great deal in terms of fuel economy, but that is where this car bucks the trend. You see, I've been driving it for a little over 13,000 kilometers, and it has averaged in that time around 7.4 litres to the 100 kilometers, which is remarkably low. I will admit, much of my driving is done on the motorway and fast-moving B roads, which obviously helps with fuel economy. But even when driving the Kia around town, taking it on dirt roads, etc., conditions that would bump up the fuel consumption, I've never seen it go above 9 litres to the 100 kilometers. It's always been very frugal. In opening, I mentioned the old adage that first impressions last. And I have to say that after 6 months and 13,000 kilometers with the new Sorento, that has certainly been the case. I still love the styling, I have to say, it's a great looking car, but I'm still impressed by just how refined, how frugal this car is, how practical as well, how spacious and comfortable, and also I'm impressed by what it offers for the money. If you look at all the equipment on board, the space on offer, the practicality, there are very few rivals, even among the sort of premium European brands, that can match what the Sorento is putting out.